Let's get to the news. While speaking over the weekend at a campaign rally in Pennsylvania, former President Trump discussed golf legend Arnold Palmer and said he was, quote, all man. Well, technically he was half man, half iced tea. It's like a well-known fact. That's right. While speaking over the weekend at a campaign rally in Pennsylvania, former President Trump implied that golf legend Arnold Palmer had a large penis, but I think he was telling on himself because he said, I swear to God, at least 3 inches. That's right. Former President Trump held a rally over the weekend in Latrobe, Pennsylvania, and suggested the golf legend Arnold Palmer was well endowed. Well, still not as bad as that rally where he suggested that Mike Pence might be hung. It does work. Well, McDonald's screwed up my order again. While working at a Pennsylvania McDonald's yesterday, former President Trump told reporters, quote, I love McDonald's, I love jobs, I like to see good jobs. Well, you know, I just realized if you replace I with me, he has the same vocabulary as Cookie Monster. Me love McDonald's, me love jobs. Yesterday was Vice President Kamala Harris's birthday. Unfortunately, when she blew out the candles, she was still somehow tied. And we've brought the room down. Remember me? Remember Cookie Joe? During his speech at a campaign rally for Vice President Kamala Harris last week, billionaire investor Mark Cuban said former President Trump would ruin Christmas by making gifts more expensive, while Trump said Christmas would be ruined by migrants eating Rudolph. Former President Trump spoke last week at the Al Smith Memorial Foundation dinner and said that Vice President Kamala Harris has, quote, no intelligence whatsoever, while Trump has tons of it in his bathroom at Mar-a-Lago. Like a whole tub full. The New York Yankees are headed to the World Series where they'll face the Los Angeles Dodgers, giving fans of both teams a chance to root against the city they just moved from but will probably move back to again in about 5 years. That's right, the New York Yankees will play the World Series for the first time since 2009. Unfortunately, my graphics department is mostly Mets fans. According to the latest numbers, nearly 9 million people have already cast their ballot in the general election through early voting. That story again, nearly 9 million people are asking the candidates to please stop texting them. Former President Trump worked at a McDonald's this weekend in Pennsylvania where he claimed Kamala Harris has allowed hundreds of thousands of Hamburglers to enter this country from Mexico. Worked. He worked at a McDonald's. Former President Trump spoke last week at the Al Smith Memorial Foundation dinner and sat next to New York Cardinal Timothy Dolan. I'm not sure what they talked about, but immediately afterwards, Dolan moved Trump to another parish. Remember? After a voter at a town hall event last week asked former President Trump if he truly believed immigrants are eating pets, Trump said, quote, they're eating other things, too, that they're not supposed to be. Then again, he probably just means vegetables. During his first solo campaign event in support of former President Trump last week, Elon Musk urged the crowd to, quote, pester their friends and family who are not yet registered to vote, adding, I would if I had either of those. Coca-Cola has issued a recall for 13,000 cases of Minute Maid lemonade because they're mislabeled, specifically, contains lemons. Disneyland has implemented price hikes on tickets to the park during peak times, such as when they're open. The Brazilian Supreme Court has lifted its ban on X after the social media platform blocked accounts accused of spreading misinformation. And now the only user left is a bot that posts a puppy every hour. After it was revealed that the upcoming season of Emily in Paris will be set in Rome, French President Emmanuel Macron said in a new interview that he will fight hard to bring the show back to France and added, quote, Emily in Paris in Rome doesn't make any sense. Neither does Emily still being in love with emotionally distant Gabrielle when Marcello in Rome is ready to commit. Dude. And finally, a man in Canada recently set the Guinness World Record for most hot sauce eaten in 3 minutes. Of course, in Canada, this is hot sauce. While speaking yesterday in New Hampshire about former President Trump, President Biden said, "We got to lock him up," before catching himself and adding, quote, "politically lock him up, lock him out." All right, so I guess rest wasn't the problem. Man, this is like when a tech company debuts a new robot and it just falls over and shoots sparks until they close the curtain. That's right, President Biden said we got to lock him up before catching himself and adding, quote, "politically lock him up." Oh, we know what you meant. That's like Trump trying to say we got to hang Mike Pence was really, we got to hang Mike Pence. In a new interview, former White House, and by the way, you know, look, President Biden's old, and that's absolutely the worst thing you could have. What's Trump up to? In a new interview, former White House Chief of Staff John Kelly said that former President Trump spoke positively about Adolf Hitler more than once, and added he wanted, quote, "the kinds of generals Hitler had." You know what? I'm starting to think Trump doesn't watch the ends of documentaries. They took Paris, and then everything was great. In an interview with the New York Times, former White House Chief of Staff John Kelly said Donald Trump met the definition of a fascist, would govern like a dictator if allowed, wanted the kind of generals Hitler has, believed fascism would work better than American democracy, and had no understanding of the Constitution or the concept of rule of law. Said Republicans, unacceptable. Strike two. In a new interview, Ohio Senator J.D. Vance's wife, Usha, said that during the past few weeks of campaigning, she's been traveling with an 800-page English translation of the Iliad. Man, you know you're boring when you travel with your wife and she brings homework. At a campaign event in Wisconsin yesterday, Minnesota Governor Tim Walz said that former President Trump does not have the stamina required to be president. Well, it's nice to see that someone's read the book. In a new interview, Vice President Kamala Harris said she supports raising the federal minimum wage to $15 an hour, anything to attract better quality workers. Starbucks has unveiled new Wicked-themed beverages, while over at Dunkin', that's all of them. Let me get a Wicked hot coffee, a Wicked big culotta, and Wicked fast, because I'm hungover. Country singer Jelly Roll has announced that he quit the social media platform X and called it the, quote, "most toxic, negative app to exist ever," which is also a way better name than X. Forbes Travel Guide has announced the winners of the 2024 Air Travel Awards, and New York's LaGuardia was named Best U.S. Airport. For New Yorkers who want to check LaGuardia out, the easiest way to get there is to drive to Newark Airport and then fly there. Let's do one more about the Newark Airport. The news is bad, you know, and it's going to get depressing. Newark Airport, we can all agree. And finally, an airport in New Zealand. This is a misdirect, by the way. This joke's going to be about Newark. Not to give it away, but I'm going to talk about the New Zealand. There's no information about the New Zealand airport in this joke. Great. Don't drift off on me because you're like, I don't care about the New Zealand. This is Newark. And finally, an airport in New Zealand recently posted a sign to limit the amount of time for curbside drop-offs that says, quote, "max hug time 3 minutes," while Newark Airport posted a sign that says, "please bang when you get home." See? We're having fun, everybody. Vice President Kamala Harris participated last night in a CNN town hall event with undecided voters in Pennsylvania, though I think talking to voters who are undecided at this point is like watching a movie with your mom. Wait, who's that lady? Are we supposed to know her? Who's that guy? I thought he died in that car accident. During last night's CNN town hall event, Vice President Kamala Harris said she prays daily, while the rest of us have bumped it up to hourly. Vice President Kamala Harris yesterday criticized former President Trump over reports that he has repeatedly praised Adolf Hitler in private. And if you think that's bad, you should hear some of the stuff he says in public. At a Trump campaign rally yesterday in Georgia, former Fox News host Tucker Carlson compared former President Trump returning to office to a father who comes home to give a, quote, bad little girl a vigorous spanking for being disobedient. Wow, I guess for my part, I'm just glad he's standing behind a podium, you know? Most people just clear their browser history. They don't put it in their speeches. Well, speaking last night at a rally in Georgia, former President Trump told his supporters that they have no idea what he did in the White House and said, quote, I stopped wars with France, though I think that's just the kind of stuff they had to tell him to get him to sign papers. Yeah, no, this one stops a war with France, sir. All right, well, you're welcome, France. According to a new poll, Republican Senator Ted Cruz's lead over Democratic Senate candidate Colin Allred has shrunk to just 1 point, potentially leading to an improbable election night scenario where Ted Cruz loses and I can't even enjoy it. Former President Trump reportedly met with Fox News owner Rupert Murdoch and asked that the network go easier on him. Easier? How could they be any easier? Bravo is tougher on Andy Cohen. The only way Fox News could go easier on Trump is if they started adding gorgeous to the chyrons. First Lady Dr. Jill Biden yesterday visited a Chinese restaurant in Las Vegas. The food was good, but the fortune cookie was a little old. Not old enough, I guess, because that joke still hits a bone. Bone, right? That's what they say, not nerve. A lot of people say jokes hit a nerve, but not old Myers. I like to hit the bones. A woman in Bangladesh recently set the Guinness World Record for most grains of rice eaten one at a time using chopsticks. Cool, said the couple waiting for the table. American Airlines has begun testing a new boarding system, while Frontier is sticking with knife fights. And finally, a library in New Jersey recently received a book that was more than 100 years overdue. The book was titled My Journey to the Senate. That was a monologue. Here we go.